Awesome. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we all? Beautiful sunny day in Coffs Harbour. Not too much reason to complain. Good. Okay, yeah, as Tom said there briefly while we were fixing our IT issues there, we're going to be running a workshop this morning about managing asbestos waste, basically from generation to disposal. Now, this isn't going to be a run through or blow-by-blow description of how it's done. I'm sure there are plenty in the room that already know that. We're going to do something a little bit different and make it a little bit more meaningful. Okay, so what we're actually going to be doing today, some of you may or may not be aware, I made some, albeit controversial, but some public comments about asbestos contamination in recycled goods recently. And lo and behold, that got to the attention of various people in the shall we say, the upper echelons of EPA and asbestos management in New South Wales and across Australia. And I thought, well, hey, why not take that opportunity? We've got a bunch of obviously very smart people. You chose to show up at this workshop, so tick. And let's provide some feedback to them about what the current state of play is. Okay, so it's going to be interactive, and unfortunately, because it's being recorded, I like to sort of get out and about and to walk and talk, but apparently I'm confined to the microphone here today. But yes, but it's going to be focusing a lot on your thoughts, your conversations, your experiences in this current state of play in managing asbestos waste. So we will have an opportunity for you to provide feedback. So for those of you with your smart devices, please scan away. And you'll be asked to put in your first name. Don't worry, all the results are anonymous, okay? So they will be kept, they're not linked back to you in any way, shape or form. And then there should be a practice question for you about where do you hail from, which I will get to the next page if everyone's finished scanning QR codes and the like. Nearly. Yeah, you can get close to the screen. You know, I'm not going to stand on convention. It's not a... I heard someone say it looks like a wedding. It's not a wedding. Okay, you can get up and have a walk around. Yeah. And it's a little bit glary off the screen as well, obviously. So... How'd we go? Did everyone have a chance to connect and put a name in? This is what I will do now, is progress it to there, and if you refresh, it should actually get you back to, where do you hail from? Okay, so you've got some options there, and we can get a bit of a rough idea of where everyone's from in the room as well, so I can know firsthand which states and territories I can disparage without fear of retribution. Yeah, I know, Victorian... That was apparently the worst insult that came up in the 1800s. It was your cabbage gardeners. I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah. Compared to being a cockroach, I mean, like, that's pretty good. So. Yeah. ACT, yeah. And I like the NT ones. There isn't actually one other than Territorian, so I just put Sir and Madam in my experience in dealing with people from the Territory. So, yeah. Okay, how'd we go results-wise? Let's have a quick look. A lot of people from New South Wales. That's cool. And for those of you from outside of New South Wales, welcome. Now, I didn't get to have a look on the chart. Was there anyone from outside of Australia? No? Okay. All right, cool. All right, so there'll be a glowy blue question come up in various parts of the presentation, and that'll be your cue to go back to your questions and add your thoughts to the poll. So, okay, so we are talking about asbestos, and it is a miracle material. Okay, there is no denying it in terms of its properties. I know Coffs just talked about, deliberate, being deliberate in design. The use of this material was very deliberate, okay? Now we're talking about three main types of asbestos when we're talking about the Australian environment. So the white, brown and blue. That's, I know there's another two types that, SafeWorks and the likes will tell you about, but 99.9% of the asbestos containing materials that we come across in the waste industry are one of these three beasts, okay? Now, in terms of which one is the most problematic, does anyone know off the top of their head? Blue, yeah, for health reasons, yeah. Because the fibres are just so damn small and very brittle, okay? So, so as I said, it is a miracle material. It has all of these properties, okay? It is fire resistant, it is electrical insulator, it is a thermal insulator, it's easy to use, it's easy to manufacture, it's easy to mine, it's abundant, it's natural, all these wonderful things, which made it very easy to market. And if you do a deep dive on the web, you'll find all these wonderful products. Now there are a couple there that you might ask questions about. The baby suit one, that is a fake ad, okay? I know that's done circulation in social media. There wasn't an asbestos baby suit, thank God. But the eagle-eyed people in the room, who spotted an item that doesn't look like it belongs there? I know it's a bit hard to see, sorry. The cigarettes, yeah. Okay, what are cigarettes doing there? Well, the good people at Kent, not satisfied enough that their product was, cancerous enough, they doubled down. And guess what they put in the filter of their cigarettes? Blue asbestos. Okay, so cancer with extra cancer, awesome. Okay. So, made it super easy to market. And look, can I just say too, it's a historical item too. There is actually an account of a dinner that was held between some Roman dignitaries during the height of the Roman Empire, where they demonstrated this magic fabric that after they finished dinner, they threw it into the fire and it cleaned it. They pulled the fabric out of the fire unscathed, and all the food stains and the wine stains and everything had been baked off the tablecloth. It was an asbestos fibre tablecloth, back in the Roman Empire. So that's how long this stuff has been in use. One small problem though. Look, and there's the list of all the goodies for those of you that can see it on the screen. But there was or is a small issue with asbestos. Now, if anyone is particularly squeamish, trigger warning, okay, I'm going to show a picture of a lung that has been affected by mesothelioma. So if you're not comfortable watching or seeing, human body parts not where they're supposed to be, you can look away now and I'll let you know when it's safe to look again. Okay, so that is a human lung affected by mesothelioma. It is an insidious disease where you're literally strangled from the inside. Okay, so your lungs are literally strangled for their capacity to breathe. It's awful, awful, awful disease. And with my father being a mechanic, I've seen many of his friends actually succumb to this disease as well, because guess what else asbestos was in? Brake linings. Not very pleasant at all. And I won't bore you with the facts and figures about how many people die from asbestos-related disease and how, there's a second wave that's happening at the moment. But you would have had to have been living under a rock recently not to know about the recent issues with the asbestos contamination of mulch. Okay? And, well, wouldn't you know it, when you started looking, especially interstate, you found some more issues, okay? And so there was issues in the ACT, there was issues in Queensland, there was issues in Victoria. There wasn't anything make it in the media about issues in South Australia. or Western Australia or the Tasmania or the other territories. But I suggest if you looked hard enough, you would probably find issues there as well. Okay, so it is topical. And so in terms of when asbestos was banned, people talk about it being banned. It actually happened over quite a long period of time. And it really wasn't until December 2003 that there was a complete ban on asbestos products being sold in Australia, or asbestos-containing products being sold in Australia. So, in theory, there are no more asbestos-containing material or products containing asbestos being introduced to the economy in Australia, in theory. So if we have a look there, and you can see that, Russia, Kazakhstan, China and Brazil, they mined about 1.28 million tonnes of the stuff last year, not 2003, last year. Okay, it's not ending up in wheat bix, okay, it's ending up in products. And a lot of those products are going for export. And Australian Border Force has actually intercepted quite a lot of materials that contain asbestos at the border. And I suppose to link back to Kazakhstan's involvement there for Australian Border Force, great success, yeah. Are they getting everything though? And again, I'd suggest probably not, okay? There would be stuff sneaking through. So vigilance is going to be required, definitely, going into the future. Because no one's telling Russia, Kazakhstan, China or Brazil to stop mining asbestos. And they will still do it while there is a market for those products. Yeah. Okay, now that's going to be a little bit hard to see with the glary screen, but what this basically says is where are the asbestos-containing materials at the moment. Now, number one on the list, pipes. Okay, that's not too bad. Majority of them are buried, so when they become unserviceable or or no longer able to be used for whatever reason, then they can be left in situ and managed appropriately like that, with minimal risk to human health and the environment. Good stuff. Number two on the list is housing materials. Okay, so sheets, corrugations, fencing materials, tiles like lino tiles, linoleum, etc., etc., etc. And that stuff is in the process of coming out of the built environment and going to landfill. Now, at what rate? So we've got some figures there. Again, if we're talking for all of Australia, 2022-23 financial year, 1.2 million tonnes. So about as much as was mined in China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Brazil. Okay, so about that amount came out in that financial year. And we're at the peak. According to some modelling that's been done, we're at, I suppose you could call it peak asbestos. Okay, this is the time between now and about 2030 that the vast majority of asbestos waste is coming out of the environment. And then it's going to tail off after that. Okay, so question for you all for feedback. Given that we're at peak asbestos, do we think that the regulatory settings that are presently in action, do we think that they're appropriate? I might have to step off the podium to have a read of this. Has everyone had a chance to put their 2 cents in? Shall we have a look? Oh boy. Have I read the room right? I don't think so. is the vast majority of the answers. Okay. Interesting. For a bunch of waste professionals. Okay, cool. All right. So let's dig a little bit deeper. All right. So thank you for your feedback with that. Let's dig a bit deeper. Is it about education and awareness? Okay, is that where the problem lies? So, what do we have in Australia at the moment? Well, we have a federal agency dedicated to the eradication of asbestos. That's what it says in their remit, okay? We also have Safe Work Australia. You go on their websites, you will find a plethora of information about asbestos, health effects of, where it exists, safe removal of, etc., etc. You then go down to a state level. Every single, and I've checked, every single state and territory has information available, again, about what is asbestos, where do you find it, what are the health effects, what if you need to remove it, all that sort of business. And then as a third tier, you've got a lot of organisations, some of them charity, not-for-profits, that similarly provide a lot of this information. Now, not obviously discounting the role of local government here, because that's where a lot of people front up to, ask, hey, I'm going to reno my bathroom, or I'm going to demolish the shed, or whatever, what do I need to do? And I'm assuming a lot of you just reach for some of this pre-prepared material, or do you have your own prepared? No? Yeah? Okay. So there's a wealth of material available, definitely, but is it a case that the message isn't getting through? What do you think? I have a chance to provide your feedback on that. All right, how are we looking? Message not getting through. Why do we think that is? For those that have said, I don't think so. Has anyone got any thoughts on that? Yeah, so yeah, you got to find it first. Yep, that's true. So it won't happen to me. Sort of thing. It's not relevant to me. Rules don't apply to me. That sort of thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
It depends on who's handling it.
Yep. In what respect?
Well, in my position, I get phone calls from builders all the time that are aware of the legislation or sort of regulations around it, but law not handled down usually.
Okay. Yep. So down to the experience and expertise of the people that are dealing with it. Yep. Okay.
Do you know that care factor, everyone? Like just don't even care? Or the range of products that it's in and what those products are like?
Why do we think? Why do we think that's the case? Like, given, and I've always found this interesting too, given that it kills. I mean, the scientific evidence that says sufficient exposure to asbestos fibres kill. Why do we think the care factor's still time frame?
It's not 30 years is a long time. It's a bit like climate change. You know it's probably there, but because it's not really impacting you directly.
Okay, so it's like a problem future Jason has to deal with.
Too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah.
I think too hard to do it there, so I've got 40,000 things I need to do today, and there's a couple of chunks of asbestos in my downstairs, and I don't even know what it is, and it's going to chuck it and get rid of it.
Okay. Interesting.
I've also got, I just had asbestos removed from my place with the builder and electrician there, and just because I work in the waste industry, I was asking them questions about their PPE because they didn't wear any. And their response to me was, oh, that's all. Whatever, that's a
it's a bit of a worry from people that do come across it on a very regular basis. Yeah. Okay.
Against all that, we have asbestos for and the builder who was licensed for it forgot to clean some water time, just spray it down. So it's all outside, but what's really from everywhere any other PPE or mask, because they were outside or something.
That's what made it like this.
Yeah. What's the stat? You breathe in 3,500. You, me, everyone else breathes in about 3,500 fibres every day, just from walking, talking. You know, what's a few more? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jason,
Yep.
I think the other problem is that, from my experience, we've demonised it so much that the accidental finds, when the people find in their bathroom, they take the wall down and go, oh my God, there's asbestos behind it, scares the crap out of them, and they just don't know what to do. If they go into panic mode, easy solution, red bin, illegal dump, whatever it happens, but we've demonised it so much that it's just taken away the ability for people to deal with it. We're scared of so much.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, James. I've heard that more than once actually about this paralysis that people feel when they discover it. It's like, oh, this is terrible, but what do I do? Yeah,
The planned ones are fine. If they
Yep.
know it's there, they'll plan for it, builder comes in. It's the accidentals. They
Yep.
do a bathroom reno, they take the wall down, and it's fibrous wrapped around a heat pipe, or just
Or something.
the person before them covered up the asbestos with new fibre.
Yep.
So
yeah. No, good point. Thanks, James. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on that about why the message doesn't seem to be getting through then? Like, given this apparent abundance of information.
I do think to that point, the demonising, certainly in Queensland, I live in Queensland, the regulatory framework with environmental protection and then more of a waste overlay since 2019 and waste levy, that regulatory framework can be quite complex to navigate between, training, tracking, waste management, transporting, and then, where sites can actually accept it, it is actually quite a lot to wrap your head around and coordinate and manage.
Okay. That's a good point too, because and I often make this point a lot because I do a lot of training with local government officers as well in a regulatory perspective, and so a lot of these people, it's the first time they actually have any direct interaction with any regulatory system, so to speak, that they're aware of anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, Jason, another one
Yeah.
is for the smaller councils with, say, trench landfills.
Yep.
It's, they kind of want to hub and spoke where they say, oh, we only want to accept it at our main facility. But then you have someone doing a reno in a satellite village and they're like, you know what, this little tip's open, I'm just going to go and dump it in there. And then the council's stuck with the bill and they think, oh, well, do we have to get a clean up? Do we just push it into the trench? What do we do with it? And a lot of these unlicensed sites are allowed to receive asbestos, but it's just a whole can of worms that makes the council's life more complex when builders or whoever's doing the demolition in the town choose a shortcut rather than
Yep.
paying to haul it to the main landfill.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Tom. And yeah, I know you and I have both dealt with many issues that have come out of that. So probably a question I should have asked right at the start. Does anyone believe that asbestos, once it becomes a waste, that it belongs anywhere else other than landfill? No, good. So no one's an advocate for recycling asbestos. Whew. Okay, that's good. I'm really happy about that. I can tell you stories about my time with New South Wales EPA about coming across people that thought it was possible. Yeah, interesting stuff, but good. I'm speaking to kindred spirits then. Excellent. All right, now thanks for that. Well, look, let's, I suppose, move on then in terms of, I suppose, the regulatory framework. So we talked a little bit about that. And well, to start with, we've got levy and we've also got disposal requirements. And this, for those of you that can see it, when I was putting this together, this was interesting in terms of waste tracking and waste levy applicability. Who knew, that every state and territory would have a different take on how you should do it? Yay, federation. Okay. Yeah, some interesting ones there. And unfortunately, I will disparage the majority of the people in this room. One standout. Can anyone spot that one?
WA can do what they like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. No levy. Do what you want. What about New South Wales though? Can anyone else see the other states and territories are sort of, some of the other states and territories have sort of acknowledged that, okay, if you bring it to our facility, appropriately separated, wrapped, ready for disposal, levy exempt. Not the case in New South Wales at the moment. Okay, interesting. And then in terms of tracking as well, yeah, some states do, some states and territories do, some don't. They have different thresholds for when you do require tracking. Some are 0, some are, what's one there, 100 kilos, 50 litres. You know, so the units don't even agree on a lot of cases. So you can see why a lot of interstate building companies tear their hair out when they have a job to do. They do have one set of rules to play with one week and another the next. So, yeah. And the levy amounts too, obviously very different from state to territory. Now, interestingly, I've got an asterisk there for ACT because obviously those rates are set by the ACT government and that is an all-encompassing rate. So there is, I suppose, a leviable component in that, but it's not separated as such. Okay. And then, yeah, the requirements. Well, fortunately, there is something that every state and territory can agree on. It's got to go to a lawful facility. That's a start. Okay, that's good. But from there, depth of cover, when it's got to be covered, if depth below final cap of the landfill, have you got to actually identify the location where it's at in the landfill, record those details? That varies drastically from state to state, territory to territory. Which I suppose leads nicely into the next question. Are the regulatory settings around transport and disposal of asbestos waste right? Give me your thoughts. Everyone's had an opportunity. It's a little bit glary from my side, but am I interpreting that right? The vast majority is between I don't think so and absolutely not? Or have I missed something there with my colour perceptions? And there's a few people not sure? 33, a third not sure. Okay, cool, all right. Well, Cost has talked about being an agent of change, and so what needs to change? What has to change? Because, as I said, we're at peak asbestos. Okay, if there's any time to get it right, it's now. So what needs to change to move you out of the not sure category or move you out of the definitely not category? That's a big one. Yeah, consistency. Sorry?
Reduce costs.
Costs reduced, yep.
Cost elimination, an amnesty for automatic weapons kill, there's an amnesty, why is there not for asbestos?
Now, I have heard and I want to explore this point a little bit more about like an amnesty or fee-free or things like that. There is an unfortunate truth to anything like that, is that who ends up bearing the cost of that? Typically. Taxpayer, but the first line that usually gets it? Local government. Yeah, because they've got operational costs, obviously, in terms of making sure the material's disposed properly and all the rest. And I think that's probably one of the bigger hurdles that needs to be overcome if we're going to be talking about, cost elimination or amnesties or the like, which I'm all for. I think the more you remove it out of the environment, remove asbestos-containing materials out of the environment, the better. But I don't want it to, my personal view is that I don't want it to seem to be sort of duck-shoving costs across the local government. I know they're pretty sick of that, so, yeah.
Question, Jason. Where
Yeah,
does
Tom.
money flow for asbestos? So is there money at the Commonwealth level that kind of flows down to the states, or we're talking about it being expensive to local government? Where does it aggregate?
Nothing specific at the moment. So I'm like, there is a campaign at the moment by not the ACT, what are they called? Mining. Yeah, they keep changing their acronym. Construction. One of the construction conglomerate unions to basically have asbestos material removal funded, out of high priority buildings to start with. So okay. Right, that's an interesting point. Okay, well, what other regulatory settings are we thinking need to be tweaked or changed or dropped or introduced then to?
We need to have one body dealing with it. At the moment, there's the fight between who's the ARA of asbestos in New South Wales, and it depends on where you are and what you're doing. It's either EPA or it's local councils or what. This is a hazardous material. The EPA should remain the ARA and deal with it all.
Has anyone else played that silly game about they've got to call in, and I'm speaking mainly to the council, the representatives in the room, you've got to call in, and it's a neighbour concerned about the way that fibro is being removed from a house next door. And that technically is a safe work issue because it's a work site. But then as soon as it passes the front gate of the property, it becomes a waste. It's no longer a safe work issue, it's an EPA issue. But all the while, you're the person getting all the calls about, am I going to die? Is this a problem? Is anyone played that game a lot? Yeah, a few of you have? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, again, James, there's something I agree with.
It hasn't been finalised. When was the ICAC investigation? 7 years ago? 8 years ago?
Yeah,
It hasn't been finalised.
and there's even an ombudsman report that says there should be one regulator.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got illegal dumps at Lismore Council, so
Yep.
depending on how big the pile is, apparently depends on whether it's the EPA or council's responsibility. There's no pile size.
Well, they've even changed their mind on that.
I'll-
Sorry, I'm the illegal dumping coordinator down south. The instructions I were given is if the property owner invites material onto their property, soil, whatever, and it's full of asbestos, local government. If it's illegally dumped, so if they don't invite it and it's dumped on their property without their knowledge, it's illegal dumping, it's EPA. But then they did the backflip as soon as the schools invited mulch onto their land and it was full of asbestos. EPA, apparently we were told, put 100 people on the campaign in Sydney, which went against what they told me 3 weeks beforehand. So they don't, because it's politicised, well, they go up, but yeah, they'll tennis ball it around, depending on their moods. So
Yeah. I'll get to illegal dumping and we'll explore that one a little bit more, if you like, about, because there is some misinformation going around about, this supposed threshold. So, yeah, okay. Righto, I'm going to raise it then since no one else has. Levy. What's the thinking? Shouldn't be? All right, now this is where it gets tricky. What if it's asbestos contaminated rubble or soil?
So asbestos might only be 0.5% of the weight of it.
Yep.
the levy was designed to drive recycling. You can't recycle asbestos. You can't recycle anything the asbestos is in. Therefore, how can you tell the common person or the person out there that, we're putting a levy on this to drive recycling, when we material that you can't recycle.
Couldn't say it better myself. Yeah,
And we
I
haven't
agree.
collaborated.
No. Look, again, I'm trying not to inject too many of my own thoughts in that. I'm definitely agreeing with what's being said, because yeah, it's exactly right. It's the levy was designed as a tool to discourage landfill as an option. But if landfill is your only option, yeah, what's the purpose of it then? Anyway.
Yeah, it's properly wrapped and it's all been sorted and I've let it through the gate and I've put it in the same landfill as my waste. I've got to pay an extra $50 a tonne.
Bit rude.
Slightly.
Yeah. So
There'll be a criminal element that'll take advantage of it if we do take the money off.
yes, yeah, and I know that's an issue that Queensland DES had, where they initially started in a position that all of it was exempt, and suddenly a large amount of soil was showing up being lightly seasoned with asbestos waste. So yeah. So there does need to be safeguards in that sense. But all right, let's go for something uncontroversial then. If it shows up at a landfill facility, appropriately segregated and wrapped, ready to be offloaded into a pit for disposal, should a levy apply to that material? Okay, all right. Cool. Okay. Tracking. Does anyone disagree with the need for tracking asbestos waste?
It's too convoluted for the general person. The new
Yeah.
tracking coming in New South Wales, all asbestos has to be tracked.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of contractors have said people are turning up to the front gate and we then have to get our iPads out and they have to get an account, get in, log it,
And do
where
it.
came from, where it's going, and this is for 5 kilos of asbestos.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. And where's the follow-up? What happens if you don't do it?
Yeah. Okay.
It's the follow-up too, like, I mean, I'm transferring from waste locate to the new
Yeah.
tracking system. There's never been any evidence from waste locate that I've seen
No.
that we can see that we're reporting as councils for obligations
Mm.
on, you know, the repeat offenders
Exactly right.
and, you know, we don't see any
Non-compliant
results.
guys just go into a database that sits somewhere. Yeah, exactly right.
There's no fake. So these people have used waste locate in the past.
Yep.
Or we've reported them, know that they've been reported, and know that they haven't been come with a big wig, the big, you know, big stick,
Mm.
and they continue to still have terrible methods.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, and I've just got my notes here. I'm hearing that there's some issue with the usability of the newer tracker system. Given putting the data issues aside, the usability of the QR codes for waste locate. For those of you that are interstate, that was the New South Wales tracking system. It was based on a QR code system where you basically just had to scan a QR code. How do you find the usability of that? Those that had experience with that?
Well, we had no idea who was using it.
Yeah.
So, like, if they came out there and about way bridge after dropping it off, they'd scan it. We'd get no report on that in any way, shape, or form. So it didn't matter if they scanned it or not.
Yep.
People go.
Okay. All right, and then what about disposal requirements then? For those of you that have the fun job of dealing with it once it arrives at your facilities. How do we feel? Should it be buried immediately?
I mean, it depends on, I suppose, where, like, if you get it regularly into the facility all the time. If you get, like, yeah, say 10 loads a day, why can't you do it every day? Why can't you? I don't know if that's reasonable or not. Like, from where I come from, council I come from, we don't have 10 loads coming a day.
significant cost.
Putting
Hmm.
soil on top of one package that might only be 10 kg.
Well, that's led nicely into my next question. Then, if there is a threshold where it should be covered immediately, what should that be? Commercial load?
Commercial load almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, I suppose we don't want to discourage, people that, pulling down a, little box around their water meter or something like that, make it too difficult for them to actually dispose of that material. So, yeah.
Just on the availability for disposal, so my region is the Northern Rivers, so we've got 7 member councillors, and of those 7 councillors, there's 2 LGAs that don't actually have a licensed landfill for asbestos.
Mm.
We've got one council right next to us here whose landfill gets basically destroyed in floods in 2022, and have to now send it to third rate. And we've got 3 councils who don't have the landfill space to accept it outside of their own region. They did before. Before the floods. So the problem, and one who will accept it at the same price for anywhere within the region or in the area. So yeah, availability is significantly different in our region. People
Yeah.
travel quite long distances. So imagine if you've got a small household host and you have to go from Ballina to Tweed to Hastings to be able to dispose of that. That's obviously not much of an incentive to do the right thing.
I think there's some research out there that says for general waste, the magic number is about 32 kilometres. That's about the absolute limit that someone will. I don't know what it is for asbestos waste, so they haven't done that work specifically, but yeah. But that's a good point. Yeah. All right. So again, I'm hearing about some. Operational issues in terms of preservation of cover, particularly for small amounts for disposal, and potential for end-of-day covering instead of immediate, as long as risk is satisfactory. Yep. Okay. Excellent. Has anyone else got any thoughts on feel free to go left field? No bad answers here. Yeah.
If New South Wales does consider a levy exemption or a rebate or something, it is important to consider that when you do have that illegal dumping, when you do have some of that untransported, not properly managed load,
Mm.
because in Queensland they then don't fall under the exemption definition, you can actually see that illegal dumping start to increase because you have such strict rules on when it does meet that definition. So I don't think it solves the problem of, promoting illegal dumping of asbestos. I think it probably makes a big difference, but there's always going to be an element.
Definitely, yeah. And look, it's a good point and a nice segue, I think, because I did want to cover the issue of illegal dumping specifically, actually, because it is a material that rears its head, seems to be too regularly in illegally dumped material. And so now this is, again, only based on New South Wales data. This is the only data that I had access to the back end of in the time available. So we're talking about 12,500 tonnes in that financial year, in that 2022-23 financial year. So look, the good news is that's apparently about 1.5% of the total amount of unlawfully disposed waste in New South Wales. Okay, so that news isn't too bad.
Is that by weight?
By weight, yeah.
That's only what's captured on Rid Online.
Yes, yeah. So there's probably, there's always going to be a bit that isn't captured on Rid Online. As far as where it's ending up, reserves, areas for environmental protection first and foremost. Okay, parks, reserves, natural areas. That seems to be the places that are getting hit the hardest. Now, does that ring true with those that are from interstate, or have you seen something different? Yep.
that don't have ice. I think our PPW has probably picked up a lot less asbestos than council offices just on open roads and verges and it's a little bit more razor than us.
Yeah, you still get the odd one. They always make the news though when someone decides to tip it in front of a childcare centre or something like that. But yeah, and they're usually not the sharpest tools in the shed because they.
I noticed the disposal into curbside bins has been a significant issue in our region. People put little bits in, the chances of it being seen or anybody reporting it has been online. It's pretty
Yep.
remote, but
Yeah.
people at the city end up things landfills and when it's in a recycle bin, it ends up on being sorted, hand sorted, etc. It's significant problem.
And that's a good point because that's a huge blind spot in the data, in that there's no real way to measure that, in terms of how much is actually ending up in red bin, yellow bin, green bin, so.
I can say that in the last year, they've done say 3 curbside audits, and we've probably found some asbestos in all 3 of those audits, and that's just auditing, between there weren't full audits like 225 households necessarily, but it's that's with up to 100 households you're finding it in at least one.
Yeah.
It's from one bin or several bins, of course, because it's aggregated, but it's not.
It's definitely a good indicator then. Yeah.
And we operate at Murph and we get it through all the time.
Mm.
Our recycling bin, all the time. We probably stop once or twice a day.
Yep.
We put records on that every time that happens.
You keep a record of quantities or just the shutdown.
Just shut down.
The shutdown times and quantities.
Yeah. And what are you finding primarily? Board? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you got plenty of that in the system at the moment. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, this is where I suppose this is the bad news. Even though it's that amount, that 12,500 tonnes, it's 1.5%. That's how much it costs around to deal with it. Okay. Now, if you turn that equation into teachers and nurses, that's quite a lot of teachers and nurses. Okay. So about $32 million a year. Now, the really tricky part with this is that there's no one bucket of money that comes out of. And even with councils, I've seen, in working with them, an asbestos waste clean-up can come out of 4 separate buckets of money. So you've got the plant that goes out and the staff that goes out. Then you've got the disposal costs. And then you've got a bill from an assessor to give you a clearance certificate. And they can be handled by 4 different sections of council. And when you ask them how much did that clean-up cost you, it's a bit like the 7 blind men and the elephant. They're all right, but it's it's not the full picture. So just keep in mind that is only for New South Wales, and it's only a conservative estimate too. So the actual amount may be significantly more than that. Yeah.
Do you know what the fines would be for illegal dumping?
Look, I suppose if I was adventurous enough, I could FOI that data and get a handle on how much. But it's at the fingertips of, the various state regulators. They should be able to, give you an idea pretty quickly.
I don't even think the fines really the considered risk of the people doing it because nobody's actually following through with those fines.
Yeah, it is a key aspect of enforcement. You do need to actually follow through on your actions. If you.
Sorry, I was just going to say, obviously prevention is better than finding people.
Yes.
And so I can't remember which councillor it is, James, you're down your way, but are you from Illawarra?
Yes.
Haven?
Yep.
Isn't it you that did the project where you...
I'm in the middle of doing another one exactly the same now.
Okay, and another council as well, I think maybe Campbelltown or somewhere where they did it out of their own council planning actually have a program where they offer a service to householders. It's not for removal of asbestos, so it's for legacy waste. So
Yep.
someone's got a sheet of asbestos in the back shed that's just loose and they don't know what to do with it. So they provide that service where they go in, they wrap it up and remove it. I think it's at no cost to the.
It's at no cost, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's to, we call it legacy asbestos.
Yeah.
Stuff they find under the house, behind the shed.
Yep.
Small amounts, has to fit all the legislation, and,
Oh, the cost benefit of that was basically that it
Oh,
cost
yeah.
them a whole lot less to operate that program annually than it did for them to go around cleaning up illegally
Well,
used asbestos. So it was like, we
what-
don't need to grant it, we'll just do it because it's actually costs us.
Yeah.
It saves the council money.
Well,
the average house cost is about $400 because of the PPE and all that, because we're getting a licensed professional to remove it. But the contractor themselves have said to us, because he also runs the contract for Wollongong Council, he says between $2,000 and $5,000 per site is a push. And we're doing $400 a house. So, yeah, there's a business case there for
it
it.
stacks up. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a shame when that business case is, costs less than, as opposed to, we're getting some money for it. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, let me ask you then. Is the lawful disposal of asbestos sufficiently or properly incentivised? What do we think?
Have you got the latest legislative changes up there?
Oh, up here, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if people know New South Wales, but asbestos dumping now has just gone, where it was $5,000, it's now $30,000. So the fines and the legislation has just gone through the roof. So we're hoping that's going to incentivise.
Well, yeah, you can hope, but
Exactly right.
yeah,
Very true. Very true. And what council's going to take on a $30,000 in court when they decide to take it to court? So
Well, and you're dealing with people that have the same blase attitude to
Yeah.
health risks.
yep.
They'll have the same blase attitude to, oh, I'm not going to get caught.
Yeah, well, the problem is, and Jason and I have been in the industry for ages, and he's done it just as much as I have. A lot of legislation is written by the EPA because they deal in land and environmental court. Most of our stuff as council people goes to local court. So the problem there lies, is I'm an ex-copper as well. So the magistrate sits there and goes, well, you get $200 because you punched a crap out of someone in the street. You get $200 because you drove drunk down the street, and you get $30,000 because you put 3 pieces of asbestos in your bush. And they're just not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They won't follow through. Not local court.
yeah. Well, I think that tells the tale. Seems like nobody's accepting that, yes, it is sufficiently incentivised. All right. So we've talked about a couple of things there, obviously. Definitely the legacy asbestos program is one way forward. Has anyone else had some thoughts as to how to deal with this issue of, I suppose it's all about friction, isn't it? If it's easier for someone to hop in their car and drive to the bush and throw out a package of asbestos waste and they can live with that, as opposed to driving to their local waste facility and offloading it there and feeling good about it, that's one option has to be offer less resistance than the other, basically. So how do we do that? Has anyone had any thoughts on?
We run a couple of, I don't know if everyone else does it or not, but we've got hazardous asbestos testing kits that are free.
Yep.
So you can come to the waste facility or corporate centre or whatever and pick up a testing kit. Then once you've sent your sample away, you've got it back, then you can pay $30 and get a disposal kit. And that's enough for less than 10 square metres. Cost you $30. Disposal's included in that. We're thinking about changing that, but anyway, that's another story. And that's how we sort of incentivize or try to help the smaller sort of residential people. And then if
Yep.
you manage to get through the front gate and drop your load off at the back of our shed and we find asbestos in it, we fine you $550 clean-up fee. So we've actually had 2 people come back recently saying, "You fined me last time, is everything okay? Just check it, I've checked it all. So that's
Good.
a hard thing to do to people because
it loops back nicely to that information,
Whether
education.
It's,
Yeah.
fine whether they hit shits next time and jump in the bush, I'm not sure.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
that's how we manage our
So that household asbestos testing program, the program's been going for about 8 years now or something, and it has been really successful. So all of the councils in the Northern Rivers operate that same process where the Babylon has both the testing themselves.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that, I think that has incentivised a lot of people to do the right thing as well. But I certainly think it's a program that we've kept it. The councils have wanted to keep that program because it works. So it's funded partly through the EPA, partly through what's the EPA through us and through councils themselves. So
Okay. Let me ask this specific question then. Is part of the obstacle in getting such programs up and running convincing your political masters that it's a good economic proposition?
so by political masters to me, EPA.
No, I mean, like if you're working for council, your councillors, because they're the ones that ultimately have a say in how council funds are spent. So,
I think there were people who from the start to give it a go, and because it's
Yep.
been successful, they've agreed to continue and to carry some of the cost of the testing. They
Okay.
test and they do the testing themselves.
Yep.
So they pay for the testing. So no, it wasn't really.
Good.
Not once
That's
it's been
good.
there anyway. I wasn't
Yeah.
around when it first started in there, but I think it's
excellent. Okay, no, that's good news. Yeah. Could be a good case study then to maybe for anyone else in the room that might be having a bit of difficulty with their, because every council's different. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on how we can remove that friction or properly incentivise?
Yeah, Jason,
Yep.
just on the back of that, incentivising local councils, and I think with all the exposure in the media and the recent or ongoing issue with asbestos and mulch, so I process organics with the business that processes organics and mulches. It's pretty much become my 2024 today. It's still ongoing. There's a big, and the public will not accept contamination of any level. So the ramifications towards standardised testing of some of the certain products within the organics industry has just transformed everything. So I think there's enough of momentum there for people to go and say, look, it's in spaces, public spaces, time to clean it up. There's enough friction removed there so there's a whole change in perception of contamination now, whether it's asbestos or other things. I suppose is the message, and people are more aware to what's happening in all those different realms. Asbestos is a big one, and it's set us back in the organics industry something like 20 years. The validation of products and getting those to market and where we've been doing for 53 odd years.
Yeah. And that was probably one of my biggest fears of what happened was it appears it's confined to the Sydney issue anyway. It appears it's confined to one operator. But, as well as I do, everyone gets tarred with that brush. So, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
there's another, I guess, disincentive to hiding asbestos landfills is the use of it for anyone else. Councils are using the microphasers, which
The little.
gun, which it's not 100% accurate. But it's
$58,000
pretty
each.
quite,
Yeah.
they are, but I think all of our councils, maybe by law,
Yeah.
do have one, and I think just the very fact that you've got one gauge has their careful group is probably a reasonable disincentive for a lot of people to do the wrong thing. We're not studying each other, but we don't have that one.
What if someone paid for said device and maintenance of? Sorry? Yeah. Grant funded? Yep. Yeah.
We'll always err on the side of the
Yeah.
not the certification, certification provide testing.
That's a way to screen anyway.
Yeah.
I guess in the big scheme of things, they are expensive, but it's not as expensive as having your whole mulch plant contaminated with asbestos.
It's not $32 million either. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. No, and yeah, and that's, I think, where the thinking in relation to asbestos waste is got to be a little bit different from your normal economic case. As I was saying to James, it's about, well, this costs less. Yeah. So, okay. All right. I had another interesting question that hasn't been raised yet, but I'll ask it. Who else should be bearing this burden? Okay, we're talking a lot about local government wearing the cost and wearing the responsibilities. I heard state whispered somewhere. No one wants to. That'd be lovely. Yeah, I think the James Hardy organisation is now, the company or the legal entity that produced a lot of this material in Australia has cleverly morphed into a not-for-profit compensation program now. So it may be difficult from that perspective, but look, again, the principles of extended producer responsibility should still apply. It's like any other waste, I would think. Yeah.
Like it's not paying for if you go to waste levy, then what's that for? How can I get some of that back?
Okay.
I'm paying money to them for it, for pleasure.
Does the Commonwealth have a role? Yeah. What is their role? Like, given the constitutional issues of, obviously they can't overstep their jurisdiction in terms of what's state responsibility and what's federal, what can they do? I mean, I'm not saying that that's
Well, they would work
what
on
we can do.
imports and stuff, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, they still do that. Yep. So, yeah. So, okay. All right, now I'm going to be really controversial. What about the insurance industry? So our friends at Lismore here have said that they've had they've obviously had a fairly substantial, series of floods, not a flood, series of floods. How much do you think that's cost the insurance industry in cleaning up asbestos containing properties?
In our last flood, not much,
Yeah.
purely because everyone saw the opportunity to dispose of it at that point in time, but not everyone was as smart as some.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's still remaining in those properties. There's, in the height of the flood, everything just went out on the street. I was involved in helping somebody clean up their house. She was a council employee. She came to me and said, "Do you think this is asbestos?" And I had 100% confirmation, but 100%, 98% confirmation was. We took it, we put it inside, we tried to wrap it, came back the next day and we all pushed up. So I reckon there's a big whisper around our town saying the next one, go for life.
Yeah.
So, and from an insurance point of view, there's, like, people are still struggling from an insurance point of view around our town. And it's taken, Public Works to jump on in, who are looking after the demolition of the houses and stuff, so.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say from an insurance point of view, probably pretty little.
Yeah, I had similar experiences because I was involved in the clean-up of the after the bushfires at Springwood and Winmalee, and it's nothing like a flood because all you've got left is ash and stuff that doesn't burn, but fire-affected asbestos. Yeah, but it's interesting in that situation because it was fire-affected asbestos, everything was treated as friable, and it was costing the insurance companies 10 times the amount to clean up a burnt down house that contained asbestos versus one that didn't. And that's why I sort of asked the question, is that, well, if all this good work, getting asbestos out of the system, is going to benefit the insurance company, or the insurance companies, should they be kicking the can a bit as well? Mm.
But it's only going to go back to the end customer.
Yeah,
When we absolutely rule it our waste facility, if you weren't insured, we would take it for nothing, but if you were insured, we made you pay.
yeah, yeah,
And it's now affected. I live on top of a hill, I wasn't flood affected, thank God, but my premium's now
gone up. Mm.
absolutely through the roof.
Mm.
Like, insanely so.
Yeah. Yeah, what's your...
You think when you're considering what's happened in the last, particularly in the last couple of years, that as a sort of long-term strategy for dealing with asbestos, a planned program of removal, particularly in high priority areas, would be a bit of a no-brainer. Instead of managing it in place, get it out of there, and you don't have to do a root excavation to life-changing event, so to speak, and there would be some real hotspots for, such as the Moffat or houses of that age.
Yep.
Really high risk areas.
So when you say planned program of removal, are we going to dare to insert the word funded in there as well? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be the biggest obstacle. Is actually funding this work because there's so bloody much of it in the environment, and yeah.
Just recently, the new national asbestos strategy was
Mm.
on the table, and in one of those discussions, I think got the submissions back to them from through the local government, New South Wales local government, and almost every item that came up in that document was it needs to be funded, it needs to be funded, and when it came back, almost all of them were funded. There's no promise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think another problem is the biggest hoarder of asbestos is Department of Housing. A lot of the housing out there already now is full of asbestos, and they won't even remove it for their own residents who aren't insured, may not be insured, and things like that. So if they're not even going to move on it and take it out of the system, who will?
I guess in its current state, it's not terribly dangerous.
That's right. That's what.
It actually known that it's not dangerous.
That's
Current state.
that's the justification that's used. Yeah. Yep. It's low risk. Yep. Mm. Okay. How do we feel about that? A planned and funded program of removal based on level of risk. Does that sound like a sensible idea?
Example?
So, Super 6 roofs. Okay, exposed to the elements for 30 plus years. I'm yet to see one that's still in good nick. They need to go. So there's a program to, and AESA's already done it with the satellite imagery. They've already found all the places that still have Super 6 roofs. They can put together a database and say, right, we're getting rid of them. But who pays for it? Yeah.
Mr. Flocky, that was a planned program of removal.
Yes, it was, but that's what James was alluding to before. It was very political. So yeah. Well, I suppose that's another question. Are we too passive? Are we too quiet as an industry? Is it a case that it's as sort of as Kosh just said, well, we just we're problem solvers.
Is it a case that we're all too busy
We deal with it.
and we don't want to engage in that fight?
We don't, we don't want to poke the bear. Yeah. Yeah.
Councils don't want to invite more risk.
Mm. Mm.
That's what it is. The more you go out and advertise and do this and this, you're just inviting more potential problems.
Yep.
I guess we're like everyone else, we're putting our head in the sand a little bit by going, well, let's just kind of deal with it the way we're currently dealing with it. If we stick our head up, we're going to get chopped off.
Yeah.
That's going to make it tough.
And the last thing you guys need is to make life harder for yourselves. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is all good stuff. What I'm planning on doing is actually putting together a document, and if you've signed up for this session, I'll circulate it to you as well. So if you wanted to add any thoughts to it, as I said, I'm in the lucky position that I've got the ear of the EPA CEO and also the the head of the asbestos task force at the moment, who's also on the national head of coordinating authorities, and I think it'd be really good information to give back to her. But before we wrap up, look, is there any other issues that we haven't covered that we might need to consider in terms of I suppose, of a holistic sort of program of, or dare I call it, regulatory reform in how we deal with asbestos waste?
I know ours is just where the situation we're at, we're currently sending out to Queensland because we're going to landfill. It's that confusion between the two states. Took weeks to get over the top of it and get it all organised, but there was just no simple way or process of actually dealing with it. But under the grounds that we're under, we
Yep.
have to deal with it. Because it was either going to keep coming through in a like dumping form or they didn't deal with the problem properly.
Yeah, yeah.
We thought about not accepting asbestos, and then we thought, well, where's it gonna go?
Look, many councils have made that decision from an operational perspective. There's no obligation on any council facility to receive material that they don't, you know, if a council facility chose they didn't want to receive clear glass tomorrow, that's within their prerogative to do that. But a lot of, ask themselves that very same question in terms of, well, it's got to go somewhere, and I prefer it in a landfill rather than picking it up off the side of the road. So, yeah.
And the other frustrating bit of that, I went down all that path and then we fill out this little triplicate or quadruplet piece of paper. It comes back to us, we send it off to the EPA, and that's the end of it. It's like there's go through all this hard work and nobody really cares what happens at the end of it. It's like, what do you mean? I just went through all that for a piece of paper that I just put in the post and sent off to the EPA, and nobody says thank you for that piece of paper.
So a bit of transparency in the reporting and the outcomes, I suppose. Yeah.
Because we do the same thing, we report to the EPA all the time. We've got the asbestos highway. They pick up a Wollongong because it's all levied, through Shore Harbour, through Kiama, through Shoalhaven, and then here in Vidala, no levy. So it's actually cheaper to go down that way. So it's asbestos highway. They pick up all the way down to Vidala or Bega, there's no levy on it.
And we're the same here from Coffs right through to Queensland.
Yep.
Pretty much the same.
Yep,
I don't know
exactly
about
right.
Tampa, I don't know about inland, but pretty sure it'd be the same.
And it goes back to what you were saying before. There's this, you report people, nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. It's not like it's one or two people either. These are people every week that you're doing it on.
The rollout too from the asbestos and tie guidelines, like, I don't know if people identify that, but in September they were changed. But we weren't given a gazette, didn't get an email or anything like that to inform us that they had that.
Yeah.
And there's no consultation with any of those, well, in my experience, which I've been with council for quite some time, there was no consultation as to update those to our asbestos guidelines. And here we are trying to damage until February the 14th of February. I just think that whole, it was poorly done.
I hear you. I've got a couple of waste industry clients that called me up and said, what do you know about this new waste tracking system? And my response was, what new waste tracking system?
They spent millions on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more highlighting that there was a huge gap that was formed from advisors that are consultation with councils regarding or anybody that is part of that has an adhered to the environment asbestos guidelines.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the legislation. That all changed and there was no consultation there. I've got rangers now who have been told by state revenue that they have to give out the new fine, even though the person was dumped 3 months ago. So these guys were going to get $1,000 and now get $30,000 for dumping stuff. There's no consultation. They've written a new illegal dumping legislation that makes no sense, that we can't enforce, but I won't even get into that part of it. But with no consultation, we're the ones left to enforce it. up in the regulation. Fix the reg now, because it can't work with the legislation.
Okay. All right, I might pick up, Stephanie, you were talking about the thresholds at which EPA get involved. Now, I'm sorry, this is boring to everyone else. Interstate, you can have a yawn and switch off for a tick, but I'm intrigued by this issue because I hear it a lot because I do travel around a lot, do a lot of training, and this is an issue that comes up a lot. What's the magic number that you've been given as to?
More than a few cubic meters or something.
Okay.
I just got so frustrated with it in the end.
Yeah.
I just collected it myself because you send it off, you don't hear back, you try and follow it up 3 weeks later, meanwhile it's an asbestos pump, you know, you might just try and get someone to make it up straight away.
Yeah.
So I've just almost given up.
So
Halfway, blocked it out.
you do the right thing by the community, but yeah, you end up, okay. I've heard 250 kilos, I've heard 100 kilos, the few different figures that have been run around. Right, let me clarify this once and for all, and I'll preface this by saying I'm not a lawyer, okay, so this is not legal advice, but if you read the black and white interpretation of the legislation, the threshold for asbestos waste dumped in terms of when the EPA becomes the appropriate regulatory authority is 0. It's any amount. Okay, and until such time that changes, that's the state of play. All right, so yeah.
I'll call you up next time and
Oh, you can tell them Jason said so. Yeah.
The problem is they know.
I know.
They
Yeah.
know it's 0.
Yeah.
It won't be changed.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because, see, the problem being there is that if council act as the appropriate regulatory authority, and I often talk about in my training sessions about the my $10,000 Italian wool suit, so I put it on when I pretend I'm being a defence lawyer, okay, my figurative $10,000 Italian wool suit, and the first thing I'm going to do is go, Your Honour, council is not the appropriate regulatory authority for this matter. They have no power to bring this action. They have no authority to issue notices.
Bang, thrown out of court straight away.
Yep.
Instantly.
Yep. So, yeah, that's the risk you run for being a good, a good governance citizen. Yeah. So no good deed does go unpunished. So, yeah. Yeah.
You can do it, but you need to be delegated from the EPA to take over the matter.
Yep.
And then you become an ARA.
Yeah.
But without that, you can't even start the investigation. So as soon as you see asbestos, you go, there's ID in there, hands in the air, don't touch anything, call the EPA, get permission, bang, you can go and do your thing. But any evidence you collect, inadmissible.
Yep.
Straight away.
Exactly right. Yep. Okay. Any other thoughts? Did that clear that up for you guys? Clear as mud. Yeah. That's the response I usually get as well. It's like, just business as usual. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments that anyone has about managing asbestos waste? Okay, as I said, if I've got your details on the participant list, I will knock together something over the next couple of days with the graphics as well, with the questions. And if you want to add anything else, feel free. I'll put it up and make it like a group sort of access document, and then I can forward that on to EPA and the heads of asbestos coordinating authorities for their information. And and I'll emphasise the point that it was a full room of very intelligent and wise and experienced people in the room that have sort of given their insights into this. So, thanks, James. Yeah. All right. No, well, we have finished up a little bit early, 4 minutes or so early. So, look, thank you very much for your participation and your thoughts. They're really valuable. And look, hopefully we can affect a bit of change. I think we've all been dealing with a system that has, just been hobbling along for far too long. This might be the turning point. Fingers crossed. Whoop. Okay. So thank you all once again. Enjoy the rest of your conference, and I'll probably catch up with you. Thank you.